point, can you go to the desk before you come up to the platform? Okay. Yeah.
Just ask. Good morning, I'm Anna Morell from Canterbury CLP. I'd like to raise a question about the CAC report saying that conference venues are fully accessible and conference is accessible for all. This year I found a number of points of inaccessibility, not limited to the refusal of service dogs who are not part of an official training scheme or registered, which is in direct breach of EHRC guidance, which was refreshed last month, and the Equality Act. Lifts breaking down, leaving disabled people stranded in them or on the wrong floors. I've been stuck in one for nearly an hour with 2 other disabled people with impaired mobility. A lack of delivery of alternative format documentation to enable people to read things through before conference. I still haven't received my CAC report this morning in large print. Last-minute changes in timings which don't allow disabled people to get to aspects of conference in time. An almost complete lack of meaningful signage around and between the venues. Virtually no adjustments for people with mental health distress or neurodiverse conditions. I've heard from delegates, parliamentarians and journalists that they have struggled with aspects of access in relation to these. Inaccessible doors everywhere that disabled people cannot open without assistance. Inaccessible toilets everywhere. And I would ask the CAC why they're not engaging with access professionals and disabled leaders within the party who have a deep knowledge of access to transform access at conference so that it is accessible to all of us. Disabled people make up 21% of this population. A third of us in the deep poverty cohort are disabled, and we need a place at conference where our voices can be represented. I would also ask if the CAC has received full training in disability and access, and given disabled people make up that number of people, why we are still being failed on access to this conference.
Hi, comrades. Everyone knows we've got a packed agenda. You know, you talked about the packed agenda. I'm a bit worried that there's the 4...
To say who you are.
Oh, and Dave Kirk from Leeds Central and Headingley CLP. The 4 items, or the 4 motions in the 55-minute session, including the keynote speech, doesn't, I think, give justice. So I'm going to ask if anything that can be done to maybe rearrange some of those motions into the earlier session, or perhaps if we can be extended by half an hour or something to allow more time for that debate, because I just think it's too short for those important items. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? No? No one else at the desk, is there? No one else? No? No, there's nobody at the desk. Okay, there's no one else, Lynn, but take your time. Yep.
Okay, thank you, Anna. First, I would say that we work hard to ensure conference is accessible as possible for all delegates, and Katrina Money, who's on the CAC, is working closely with our accessibility stewards and the staff from Disability Labour to find a solution to any issues. We did receive your email yesterday, and can I invite Anna to come up and see the CAC later this morning so we can get a full picture of what the problems are, so that we can try and resolve them, if not this year, certainly for next year. In terms of Dave, we've got a really packed agenda. And unfortunately, we've had a lot of motions that we've had to cram into 2 days. It is very unfortunate. I do appreciate that it can be frustrating, but we have to allow time for set speeches on the agenda, such as the leader's speech. We will try and do everything we can to give as much time as we can to debates, but it is a very packed agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. So now we need to take the vote on the CAC report. Can I see all those in favour of accepting the report? Thank you. And anyone against? That's very clearly carried. Thank you, delegates.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. So we're now just waiting for Yvette to join us, and here she is. So, conference, to open the debate on safe and secure communities, we have our Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper. To introduce Yvette, please welcome Pooja Kanda.
Good morning, conference. I'm Pooja Kanda, and I'm here today to tell you about my son Ronan. Ronan was a kind, humble, loving, and a happy child. He was every mother's dream son. I will always be so proud of the man he was becoming. He was just 16 years old and had just completed his GCSEs when his life was snatched away from him. On 29th of June 2022, my son was murdered in a senseless case of mistaken identity just a few meters away from our home in Wolverhampton. The boy responsible for taking my son's life was just 16 years old himself. He pierced a 20-inch sword, 17 centimeters deep, which went straight through my son's heart in a matter of seconds. In fact, that very same morning, my son's killer collected the murder weapon from his local post office after ordering it online using his mother's ID and bank card. The markings on the package were ignored. ID checks were not made, and it was later revealed that my son's killer had successfully ordered 25 plus deadly weapons online. No questions asked. There was no duty or care taken by anyone involved. Knife crime is terrifying communities and destroying families like mine. Too many mothers get the devastating news that I got, telling you that your child has been stabbed to death and is not coming back. In that moment, your entire existence changes forever. Before the election, Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper made it their mission to halve knife crime in a decade and save other young lives. Now in government, they invited me and other families affected by knife crime to Downing Street to form a new coalition to help drive forward this mission. Since losing my son, my family and I have channeled our grief into the Justice for Ronan Kanta campaign. Which aims to right the wrongs that led up to the worst day of our lives. For us, this starts with a ban on the deadly ninja sword that was used to attack my son. In opposition, Yvette made a commitment to bring this in, and now, in government, she has committed to doing just that. I and other families will work closely with this new Labour government to stamp out the scourge of serious violence on our streets. So to hear more about the government's Safer Street mission, please welcome Home Secretary Yvette Cooper.
Pooja, thank you. Thank you for your words. Thank you for your courage. It is just 2 years since Ronan was killed, but Pooja has not stopped fighting for him since. Fighting for Ronan, fighting for other children, for other mums and dads, because no parent should have to go through this unimaginable pain. So Pooja, we salute you, we support you, and now we are in government, we will back you in your fight to save young lives. Ronan's teenage killers ordered the ninja sword online. No checks, no questions asked. Lethal weapons put straight in the hands of children. So this Labour government will bring in new laws to crack down on dangerous online sales and the gangs who draw children in, alongside new youth hubs to steer young people away from violence, a teenage sure start to build hope in the future. And we will make it a mission for our whole country to halve knife crime in a decade. And yes, this Labour government will pass Ronan's Law, a ban on ninja swords. This Labour government will. It's 15 years since I've been able to say those words at a Labour Party conference. All those years we said things but couldn't do them. So don't let anyone tell you that politics doesn't matter, because 6 months ago, our party tried to ban ninja swords, but we didn't have enough MPs to win that vote. Because of the election, because of the change you campaigned for, now we do. And you know, 10 years ago, I called for buffer zones around abortion clinics. But we weren't in government. We couldn't make it happen. Now we can, And yes, we have, because no woman should be harassed on the way to a healthcare appointment that is her legal right. It can be hard to trust in change when things have felt so tough for so long. And a year ago, at this conference, I warned about the depth of the damage the Tories had done in 14 years, how they'd taken a wrecking ball to the criminal justice system, so criminals laugh at the law, how they left communities to fracture, so criminals and extremists step in. Conference 8 weeks ago, when the unbearable news broke about a horrendous attack in Southport on little children at a summer dance club. From all across the country, our hearts went out to the loved ones of little Alice, Bibi and Elsie. And that's where all our thoughts should have stayed. The following day, I met the police officers, paramedics and firefighters who were first on the scene that day and whose bravery in the face of such trauma saved many young lives. But within hours, the same Southport police were under attack, facing missiles, bottles and bricks, the most shocking, violent insult to a grieving community and the police officers protecting them, a total disgrace. And you know, then in copycat violence over the following days, stirred up from a safe distance by the grifters and the agitators online, we saw looting of shops, attacks on mosques, a citizens' advice bureau torched, an asylum hotel set alight, and people targeted on the streets of Britain because of the colour of their skin. And here in Liverpool, on County Road, the burning of Spellow Library, a place where children grow to read, left in ashes. And I spoke to some of those children who live around the library in Walton, and one told me how scared she was that night, how her mum switched off all the lights in the house and told her to stay quiet and sit on the stairs as bins were being set alight along her street. So don't anyone tell me that was protest. Don't anyone tell me that was about immigration or policing or poverty. Plenty of people have strong views on immigration, on crime, on the NHS and more, but they don't pick up bricks and throw them at the police. They don't set light to buildings with people inside. It was arson. It was racism. It was thuggery. It was crime. And you know it happened because criminals thought they would get away with it. They saw the cracks in the system, the impunity that built up through the Tory years. And when they decided to run riot those early August days, they thought no one would stop them. They were wrong. With Keir Starmer's leadership, this Labour government made clear that we would back our police, not blame them. We would stand up for our courts, not undermine them. We would pull our communities together, not divide them. We stood up for the rule of law. Decent people stood up for their communities, and together we put the disorder down. But I'll be honest, I've been shocked by the response from some of those in political parties on the right who once claimed to care about law and order. After rioters attacked the police, they should have given full-throated backing to our brave officers. Instead, too often we've seen them undermine the integrity and authority of the police, even making excuses for the mob. If you remember back in the run-up to Armistice Day last year, Disgraceful slurs that were made against the police, which made it harder for them to do their job that day, were treated as a sacking offence for a Tory Home Secretary. A year on, those same slurs have become an article of faith for every Tory leadership contender. It is shameful what that party has become. The Tories, with their mates in reform, are just becoming right-wing wreckers, undermining respect for the rule of law, trying to fracture the very bonds that keep communities safe. They have nothing to offer but fear, division and anger, but that's not who we are. That's not what Britain is about. Our country has always championed respect and the rule of law, and that is what this Labour Party will always stand up for. The party of law and order, now a government of law and order once more. And nor will we let disorder and violence silence a serious debate on immigration, something that's been missing for too long amid the chaos, the gimmicks and the damaging ramped-up rhetoric. A serious government sees that net migration has trebled because overseas recruitment has soared while training has been cut right back, and says net migration must come down as we properly train young people here in the UK. A serious government sees an asylum system in chaos and says we have to clear the backlog and end asylum hotels. And a serious government looks at the criminal gangs who are profiting from undermining our border security while women and children are crushed to death in crowded, flimsy, small boats, and says the gangs have got away with it for too long. We will not stand for this vile trade in human lives. A serious government knows that immigration is important, and that is why it needs to be properly managed and controlled so the system is fair. So rules are properly respected and enforced, but we never again see a shameful repeat of the Windrush scandal that let British citizens down. So in 3 months, we've set up the Border Security Command, launched new investment in covert operations, high-tech investigations to go after the gangs, with proper enforcement and returns. And instead of spending £700 million employing 1,000 people to send 4 volunteers to Rwanda, we are boosting our border security instead, because the best way to do that is to work with countries on the other side of our borders, not to just stand on the shoreline shouting at the sea. So from our border security to our national security, combating changing terror, state and cyber threats, to the security and the safety of our local streets. We know that security is the bedrock on which communities can come together, and on which all the opportunities Labour has always fought for are built. You don't get social justice if you don't have justice, and respect is the very foundation of our democracy, and those Labour values are at the heart of all we do. And they're at the heart of our mission for safer streets, where across the country, where for too long, rising town centre and street crime have been driving people away from our high streets, corroding the fabric of our communities. So this Labour government will bring in new powers on antisocial behaviour, shoplifting and off-road bikes, and we will put neighbourhood police back in our communities and back on the beat. And yes, after years of co-op and USDOR campaigning, this Labour government will introduce a new law on assaults on shop workers, because everyone has the right to work in freedom from fear. And you know, conference, it's so long overdue. At long last, this government will treat violence against women and girls as the national emergency it really is. When Ranim Uda called the police 4 times the night she was killed, no one came. So in Ranim's name, this Labour government will put domestic abuse specialists in 999 control rooms, overhaul protection orders and go after dangerous perpetrators who put lives at risk. New laws on spiking and online image abuse, a radical, ambitious Labour mission for the whole of government, for the whole of the country, to halve violence against women and girls in a decade, because we cannot and we will not let the next generation of women and girls face the same violence as the last. Our daughters deserve better than this. And why do we do all this? For the same reason that communities came together here in Liverpool and across the country to clear up the damage that rioters had done, to rebuild the broken mosque wall in Southport, to find a new citizens' advice centre in Sunderland, to clean up the streets, because the simple belief that we all share is this: our streets do not belong to the gangs, yobs and thieves. Our streets do not belong to the racists, extremists and thugs. And our streets will never belong to the stalkers, abusers or rapists. The streets belong to us all, and it is time to take them back. So, conference, of course the work is hard. As a poet once said, our sleeves will grow ragged from rolling them up. But if you need hope that together we can deliver, just look down the road again at Spellow Library. After the fire, a young mum from Netherton, here with us this morning, Alex McCormick, started a fundraiser. And donations are poured in from all over the world. Thousands of books, hundreds of thousands of pounds. And already the Labour Council, Labour Mayor and community are restoring and rebuilding Spellow Library better than ever before. So when Alex said, let's show the world what community in Liverpool really means, she did her city proud. She did our country proud. Up from the ashes, a symbol of hope, a model of what our country can do. So leave the politics of fear, division and decline to others. The politics of hope is ours. The future belongs to us all. Let change begin. Thank you, conference. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Yvette. That was absolutely wonderful. So, conference, we now move to 3 composite motions, which the first of which is to be moved by Usdaw and then seconded by Aslef. Do you want to make your way to the desk? Thanks, Paddy.